16 now, and Buffalo has a very proud history of growth, from a small frontier village to one of the largest cities in the country by the turn of the 20th century.
It's a history that can actually be traced in many ways through our schools. In fact, one Buffalo public school in particular that, as we find in this week's Unknown Story of Western New York, began as the original home of Buff State. The Queen City is known for its architecture, and that includes some of our earliest school buildings.
Well, buildings were made to inspire, so you wanted to, give a reason to be here.
Buffalo Public School senior architects Kaylee Aladad and Jim Napora took me on a tour of some of their favorites. First up, Hutch Tech. This building opened in 1914 to house Central High School, which had outgrown its previous locations. The land was donated by Edward Hutchinson, later adding Buffalo Tech to make what we now know as Hutchinson Central Technical High School.
Dr. Edward Hutchinson, he was known for wanting to invoke STEM programs before STEM was even a thing.
The expansion was needed to meet the growing population as well as emerging industries. And the same holds true on our next stop at Burgard. Opened in 1930, this school also addressed the needs of industry. In the 20s and 30s, aviation was a major business in Buffalo, Niagara, as was the auto industry. And Burgard put out technicians who went from high school into the workforce. The building still has ramps from the first floor to the third, so you can drive cars right up to the top, and large spaces to work on airplanes and airplane engines.
The aviation program came out of the old Elm Street Vocational Building, where in 1928 the students there pooled their money and their resources and bought an airplane.
But the school with the most surprising little-known past may be here at iPrep at Grover.
This is the original Buff State, or at least this property was the original Buff State.
Yes.
That's right. Known then as the New York State Normal School, the original building opened in 1871.
It's interesting that the history of the normal school is so completely tied to the history of Buffalo.
Wendy Patterson is the Dean of the School of Education at Buffalo State University.
And so the connection between the preparation of teachers and the growth of the city is very, very close.
And that was the mission of the Normal School, to train teachers for the growing city. And as Buffalo grew, so did the Normal School, putting up a new building in 1914 on the same plot of land. That new building would eventually become Grover Cleveland less than 20 years later, when the city swapped a parcel of land on Elmwood Avenue for the West Side site and building.
In 1931, they moved here.
And it all started with 5 buildings on the new campus, including what's now Rockwell Hall, named for the college president at the time of the move. In fact, this lawn between Bacon and Ketchum Hall was the original quad, and there's still evidence of the old school. What was 13th Street is now Normal Ave.
That was really was the story of Buffalo.
Yeah, and also explains why Rockwell Hall looks a lot like Grover. But I grew up 5 blocks, 6 blocks from there. It never occurred to me why all the other streets had state names, but then there's Normal Avenue in the middle of it.
Yeah.
It's a weird name, and I'm like, oh, now I get it, because the Normal School was there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All makes sense now.
All comes full circle.